I mean, I'd love to learn Spanish, but I'm too old for that. I'll leave all that language learning stuff to you young folks. I mean, you don't have anything in your brain anyway, so that's why all that new information can really stick.
Studies show that it's much harder to develop language fluency past the age of 12. Or is it 10? Hold on, here it says 5. Does any of that sound familiar to you? Well, today I'm giving you 4 reasons that an adult can learn a language even faster than a child can. There's no denying it, guys. Kids are masters at language learning. Babies can learn 3 to 5 languages at the same time. This is information that we know. So have you wondered, is it too late for me as an adult? Can I really learn a new language at this point and learn to use it well? Can I progress to fluency? Or do I have to get by just knowing some useful words and phrases? In my personal case, I was a teenager when I started learning Spanish, so I was pretty young. I wasn't a small child, but my mom and dad learned right along with me. And at this point, they're on their 2nd foreign language, Swahili. They're in their mid-50s. They're doing amazing. I know a lady who learned Spanish in her 70s. She's now in her 80s. She's killing it. She's doing great. So don't use age as an excuse. Let me give you 4 reasons why adults can learn a language even faster than a child can. Reason number 1. Adults know that languages have rules and patterns. As much as many of us hate learning the textbook grammar of a language, we at least know that those rules exist, that they can be learned, understood, and applied. We also know that rules are made to be broken, and that a lot of grammar rules have a lot of exceptions. Now, it's not always easy to apply all of those grammar rules that we learn, but we can at least learn about them and actively think about them. As adults, we learn languages in a deliberate way. We can hear something, repeat the words, and then try to say something different using a similar structure. Babies take a bit longer to figure all of that out. So say we're studying Spanish and we learn about the dreaded subjunctive. So we see that the subjunctive expresses desires, wishes, doubts, possibilities. Well, if someone comes up and says to us, "Quiero que vayas al convivio mañana. Quiero que vayas al convivio mañana." We may not understand that immediately. Perhaps we're not familiar with the subjunctive form of the verb ir, to go, vayas. So for a moment, we're thrown off. But we take the context of the sentence. We know that quiero que must mean that that person is wanting us to do something. We learn the word convivio, that means a gathering or a party. So we understand, okay, you're wanting me to go to the party tomorrow. Later, we can take that sentence and really break it down. So, quiero que vayas al convivio mañana. We realize, okay, this person was expressing a desire. That's why he used the subjunctive form of the verb ir, vayas. How else can I form that sentence? Quiero que hables. Quiero que te calles. Quiero que me respondas. And we start picking up on that pattern and learning to use the subjunctive in context. Now, it's true that children pick up on all of that quite naturally without having to know what they're doing. But it does take a little while for them to figure it out. On the other hand, what an adult is doing is learning patterns of a language like a child, but then going in and discovering the rules behind it, applying that to other situations, and thereby progressing faster. Pro tip: if you're having a conversation with a Spanish speaker, encourage that person to give you more sample sentences with the same structure so that you can practice on the spot. Reason number 2 that adults can learn faster than children: adults are motivated to learn a language. So think about it. When you're a child, you will eventually learn the language or languages of your environment. You'll learn the languages that you're exposed to. You have no conscious reason for doing so. It's just something that's going to happen. Now, we usually think of that as an advantage that children have over us. But really think about it. As an adult, you have a reason for learning a language. You can set goals, you can track your progress. Maybe you want to not only travel, but have deep, meaningful conversations with the people you meet. The company that you work for may be moving towards a more international structure, and you know that learning a second language is going to be to your advantage. You may have found a special someone that speaks another language, and you want to be able to communicate on a deeper, more personal level with that person. You may want to set a good example for your children and get them interested in language learning because you know all of the cognitive benefits that will have for them. Perhaps you just want to expand your horizons. I mean, after all, even though monolingualism is the norm in the US, It's not so in the rest of the world. Most of the rest of the world speaks at least 2 languages and has more cultural awareness because of that. So the more powerful your reason is for learning, the more powerful your actions will be to get to your goal. We're about to move on to reason number 3, but in the meantime, if you are finding this information interesting, let me know about it. Smash that like button below, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. Here, I'm all about providing you with language learning tips and tools, as well as Spanish lessons, so you don't want to miss out. Reason number 3, adults are in control of their learning environment. So a child has no control over their environment. Some children have parents who read to them a lot. Some don't. Some children grow up in a household where only 1 language is spoken. Some grow up in a household where 5 languages are spoken. Some children have parents who speak to them about everything. Look, it's a birdie. It's flying in the sky. Tweet, tweet, tweet. Can you fly like a birdie? Other children are just left to kind of figure things out on their own. Yes, that child will learn the language, but studies and common sense have shown that the more you interact with your child, the greater his abilities will be in speaking, in comprehension, in vocabulary acquisition, and the list goes on and on. As adults, we can 100%, well, maybe not 100%, but we can pretty much control our learning environment. We can completely immerse ourselves in a new language if we choose to do so. We can actively seek out groups and communities of people who only speak the target language. We can choose to watch shows in this language. We can read in that language. We can take classes in this language. We can go all out and move abroad and immerse ourselves in the language in that way. Really, as adults, how fast we learn a language is largely dependent on our own dedication, whereas as children, it's largely dependent on their circumstances. Reason number 4, adults have already learned life skills. Can you talk? Can you read? Then you already have some advantages over a baby. Now, a baby's brain is a marvel of wonder, but there are certain things that we cannot expect from them at certain stages. Whereas we could learn enough vocabulary to be conversational in Spanish and in many other languages in about 3 months. We can't expect to have a full-on verbal conversation over tea with our 3-month-old, can we? We're communicating in a lot of other ways, a lot of non-verbal ways, but can we really have a deep conversation with our 3-month-old verbally? No, we cannot. A lot needs to happen before a baby gets to that level. What about reading? I mean, reading is a whole nother cognitive experience for children. They have to learn that these thingies on a page are not just drawings, but they are letters or symbols representing units of sound or meaning, and that those units can be strung together to create even greater meaning. Then, in some languages, they must learn to decode those words or to memorize others by sight and to practice until fluency is reached. Some learn faster, some learn slower, but it's always a process. Well, if you can read in your native language, then you already know many of these things. And if you're learning a phonetic language that shares a similar alphabet to English, like Spanish, then you can learn to read in your new language faster than you ever could have imagined. For example, if you learn today that all of the vowels in Spanish make just one sound, and most of the consonants do too, with a few exceptions, then you could pretty much learn all of that today and start reading today. It'll take you a few days to get to reading fluency, but compare days to years. There's a big difference. And once you start reading in Spanish, your vocabulary, your speaking abilities will just skyrocket from there. So, does it take greater effort on our part as adults to learn a new language? Yes, it generally does. But it doesn't have to take longer. In fact, knowing that we can learn a language even faster than a child can, if we put in the work, is a big motivational factor. Now guys, I obviously am not knocking children in any way. I am consistently amazed at how my own 2 bilingual children have just learned both languages just like nothing automatically. It's amazing to me. It's beautiful. But I want you to understand that as an adult, you too can learn a new language well. You can learn it to fluency. And there are so many reasons why you should. So we have to strike a balance. There are some methods that children use to learn a language, even though they don't know it, that we as adults can imitate and put into practice in our own language learning journey. But sometimes we just have to play on our strengths as adults. So if you want to know how to put everything together, I have 6 methods that I consider essential in learning Spanish. If you're interested in that, download my quick start guide to learning fluent Spanish. I'll leave it as the first link below. These methods really play up on the way that an adult brain picks up a language. So definitely download your guide and get started today. Alright guys, I hope you got massive motivation from this video. If you did, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. Until next time, hasta la próxima.